Hi, everyone. We're really excited to do our first career panel network-wide. I want to introduce the network staff who are here, the Clubhouse Network staff who are here, do a little bit of an intro, and then we'll meet our panelists because that's who you really want to talk to. So really, we at the Clubhouse Network, we want to expose young people to the world of creative professionals in a lot of different fields. And we are running a pilot with Story Experiential, and we thought we would add to this. This is a program that we're piloting, and it's about creating a story reel and designing. And we thought we would do a career panel that's focused on storytelling, because there's lots of careers in storytelling. And we thought we would do that for the young people who are doing Story Experiential. There's 60 people around the network. And then we realized, why are we limiting this? Let's invite everyone to this. So some people on this call might be connected to Story Experiential and some people are not, and that's all great. But the context is we wanted to invite everyone to benefit members, alumni, staff, and the whole network. So before we get started in the panel, I just wanted to say first, I'm Aviva. I am a senior program manager at the Clubhouse Network. If you don't know me yet, I've been here for I think about 8 years now. And my whole focus is thinking about youth and being sort of college ready, career ready, life ready, future ready, and thinking about that. And I'm going to pass it over to Jeff, my co-facilitator for today, to say a quick hello.
Hey, everybody. My name is Jeff Arthur. I'm the innovation manager for the Clubhouse Network. I support the Best Buy Team Tech Centers and Clubhouses on the West Coast, Canada, and South Africa, which I see here. Shout out to South Africa. And I am focused on innovation and exposing young people to cutting edge trends and technology equipment so that they can be creators, producers of the work and not just consumers. And I'm located here in Oakland, California.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm going to also pass it over to my colleague, Alberto, just to say hi.
Hi, my name's Alberto Castro. I'm part of the Clubhouse Network staff. I'm a technology support associate out of the Boston office.
Thanks. So that's the crew from the Clubhouse Network. And before we get to the panel, which is really the whole point, I want to do a couple of housekeeping items. So if you're not talking, please put yourself on mute. You are encouraged to be on camera, because it's nice for people talking to see people who they're talking to. But if you want to stay off camera, you can. We are recording this, just FYI. And we are using the chat. So if you have a comment or a question, please use the chat feature. And please also feel free to use emojis. You know, if something really resonates with you, you can give it a thumbs up or a smile or a heart or whatever works for you. And we're trying to leave, thanks, Gus. We're trying to leave the last, 15 or 20 minutes for Q&A so that you can really ask panelists their questions directly. And we'll probably do a mix of the chat and raising your hand when we get to that. And if you are just joining now, please say hello in the chat. So just put your name and your clubhouse or your Team Tech Center, and then where you're located, just so we have a nice record of that. So that's our housekeeping. And then I want to just give a little framing before we kick off about what storytelling is. So I did go to the dictionary, because I love dictionaries, and looked it up. And it's the activity of telling or writing stories. But what does that really mean for our lives and our careers? Because really we tell stories in so many ways, in so many places in our lives. And when you think about careers, I think storytelling isn't just what you might see in the movies or you're reading about in books. Across so many industries, there is storytelling integrated in different ways. And the panelists we have today, I'm really excited about because they kind of represent three very different and distinct pathways, but they're all connected to storytelling. And I think it'll be really interesting. And that could be its own thing of talking about all the different careers. But what I'm going to have, Alberto is going to put in the chat 3 links. So if you really are interested in thinking about careers as a storyteller, he's going to put some chats in there that you can look up and get some ideas. So you can kind of save those for later. And so thinking about storytelling, thinking about how it can be seen in different careers in different ways, and there's so many ways to think about it. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Jeff to kick it off and have you hear from the people who you're really here to hear from the panelists. So over to you, Jeff.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna get to the panelists here. One thing is that we're gonna ask, Aviva and I will be asking the panelists some questions. Some will be directed to somebody, individual, and others will have be more general that anyone can answer. Also, each of them are encouraged to chime in whenever. So that's one thing. The other thing is to share in the chat. If you have any questions or thoughts, just please, again, share in the chat. We want to make this as interactive as possible, and then we'll pick the questions to respond to. All right, well, let's start by meeting panelists. So if you could start by telling us about yourself and a little bit about how storytelling is a part of your life, right? So name, background, and how is storytelling kind of involved in your work, in your life? And we'll start with Adesuwa.
All right, I'm Adesuwa. I am a poet and I'm based in Boston. My work focuses around family, community, and identity. And I would say that's how storytelling has more of guided my life rather than me guiding storytelling itself. And I graduated from Northeastern University with a bachelor's in psychology and linguistics. And recently I just finished a fellowship with the Untold Narratives, focusing on telling stories from underrepresented communities. And as a Nigerian American, it really mattered to me to make sure that that story was being told. And I'm happy to be here with all of you.
Thank you. All right, let's go to Dre.
What's going on, y'all? My name is Dre. I'm an artist designer from Los Angeles. I now live here in the Bay. I have over 15 years experience in motion graphics. So doing a lot of commercial work, animation, design, industrial design, product design, you name it, fashion, I have experience in it. I'm very versed in technology and fusing those two paradigms. And story, I think for me, is a thread that really exists in everything that I do, right? I think story is literally the foundation of art, right? When you create a piece, there is an etymology of where that piece came from, whether it was your imagination, something from nature, an exchange you had with someone else. There's all these different threads that life really fuses together to create story. So I have a brand called Morrison Wade. It's a body care brand, and it's all natural. And it's about bringing people back to what's natural. And that brand actually embodies story. We use elements from culture, whether it's music, and we find that we fuse the story of my grandfather, how he was a craftsman, and my brother, how he was really into making music, and we've packaged that into this very profound story that really pulls at the heartstrings of the people, but it's true and honest, and some may see as vulnerable, right? So stories are windows into people's lives and into various perspectives. And I feel like if we were to just open up our viewscape, we can see how stories influence everything in our day-to-day lives. So I'm happy to be here with you all, and I look forward to continuing this conversation.
Great. Appreciate it. Glad to have y'all here. All right, Isaac.
I'm Isaac. I'm an animator in Ottawa. So yeah, been doing it for professionally about 2.5 years. And I guess relating to storytelling, it kind of it's pretty integral to animation. So I guess like kind of most of what I do is based around conveying a story. You know, act, or whether it be like through like character acting or action, or really anything. It's usually a vehicle to tell some sort of story. So it's yeah.
Great. I appreciate it. All right. So first question is, what is your favorite part about storytelling? Dre kind of touched on it and how it's infused in the work and integral to the art and the brands that he creates. Yeah, this question can be for anybody. What's your kind of favorite part of it, or what drew you to storytelling?
I think the beauty of storytelling is that it's transcendent, right? It can have no boundaries. It's universal, and it's almost symbiotic in a way, because you could tell a story and someone else could relate to it. You know what I mean? Or someone else could share that same perspective of the story. And I think that's the beauty. I think a lot of times, even if you think about branding, you're telling a story, but a lot of times people, they tend to attach themselves to the story being told, is because they feel like that's their story. And that's how they relate to it, right? So I think story is magnetic. And when told properly, it's like a fine art piece, right? It's like a masterpiece, a painting that when people see it, they're like, whoa, and they get it and they understand it and they immediately gravitate toward it.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. Adesuwa, I think you were on mute when you're talking. There you go.
Yep. Yeah, I think storytelling just allows, you can do anything. Like, you can do anything with the story, and you can, whether it's, you're starting out with this blank expanse of what you're trying to fill, of the story that you're trying to make, or if you're just telling a story about a specific moment in time. I think that storytelling just allows such like a wide range for you to do anything with and to just play around with. I feel like I've never gotten bored with storytelling because I've been able to change it over the years.
All right, so we'll move on to some individual questions here. So Dre, you said you made the decision about a decade ago to be a full-time entrepreneur. Why did you make that change? And what advice would you give to people who are either interested in being an entrepreneur or interested in kind of switching paths, or kind of jewels or nuggets would you give us on call? So,
Okay, so technically I've been an entrepreneur since I was like 5 years old. I remember like back in the day in like the 90s, you could get like $1 for a glass bottle. So like I would have bottles, right? And I would just save them so I can take them to recycling center and get like $20 at 5, 6 years old. That's that's a nice chunk of change, right? Or I would like find opportunities to make money. And I think that's kind of always been in my blood. So when I was in the design field, I always knew that was a stepping stone. Like I have a degree in fine art. And I knew that, yes, this will pay me handsomely, but I knew that what I wanted to do was really work, have my own business and really do the things that I wanted to do. So, and that allowed me, and the idea was that it allowed me to be fully creative and use my creative abilities to create the things that I want to create, and not really be at the mercy of company get things done. So in doing so, I always had like a sketchbook that I would sketch ideas in, and I would work on them on the side. And yeah, I mean, when you're going out and being an entrepreneur, like for example, if you look at today's entrepreneurs or today's era, it's really revolved around instant gratification, right? So you could go out and be an entrepreneur, but you also have to develop skin in the game. And if you don't develop skin in the game, then it's not going to work out for you. You know, the first year it may not work out. You might operate at a loss. The second year might be the same thing, and then the third year you might start to see the light of day. But that's if you didn't quit by then. You know what I mean? So understanding that entrepreneurship isn't easy. It can reap bountiful rewards if you really stick to it, right? And I think something that could allow you to be successful in entrepreneurship is to really have a strong intention and direction, right? And daily practices that allow you to stick to your goals within entrepreneurship so that you can, see the light at the end of the tunnel and you can experience and reap the rewards that you got set out to at the beginning of your journey. So those are some of the nuggets that I have.
Yeah, that's great. I know a lot of young people are, have that spirit and trying to figure out the balance of keeping their art and then being able to contribute to themselves and their families and communities and stay afloat. So that's great. So if we can, keep on sharing those nuggets too. Let's go with Isaac. You clearly started honing your skills at a young age. What were the biggest hurdles that you had? And then how did you persevere through them to make it where you are today?
I think probably the largest hurdle was school. Because in terms of yeah, I did not like school a lot until I got to the program that I eventually graduated from, and despite liking it, I almost failed like the first year. I went to, after high school, I went to a school in New York, where I'm from, and then failed out immediately after a semester, and then kind of on a whim, one of my friends had showed me a demo reel from one of the students at school I would later go to, and it had like traditional hand-drawn animation in it, and which is what I really wanted to do. And so I applied there, somehow got in, and barely scraped by the first year, and then eventually got through it. But that was definitely not that was not easy, I guess.
Yeah, like what kept you going? Like why did a lot of people, and the reason I'm asking this is because a lot of people may have said, oh, I failed out, maybe this is just not for me, this path is not for me, but something in you kept you going. What can you explain that a little bit?
Partially I'm just stubborn. I like didn't want to, I don't know. I guess I at that point I kind of knew that like it was art animation was the thing that I like really enjoyed doing, and I couldn't really. It was also that like it was the first time I'd done like particularly well, like it was the only thing that I could do well at, or because of like because I was invested in it. Like I cannot like focus on stuff that I'm not interested in. It's like pulling teeth. So it was kind of like I'd found that thing that I like actually enjoyed doing, to the point where I could put time into it and like study for it, and put time into it. So I didn't really want to lose that. I don't know. Otherwise, just being kind of obsessive about it. I don't know.
Yeah, I love it. You didn't settle. It sounds like you didn't settle. You just kept on
Yeah.
to your passion.
I couldn't
Yep.
really see myself doing anything else, like in the long term.
That's what's up. Adesuwa, do you think of storytelling as telling other people's stories or your own, or a mix? Like, what would you say? Yeah, let's start with there.
I think it's a mix usually. I know that for right now, the stories that I write are a lot about like culture. So my parents are from 2 different tribes in Nigeria. So I'm trying to like capture my culture, capture those 2 different cultures with my poetry. So I know that right now I feel like I'm a part of my poetry because it's my family, it's my culture, it's what I'm talking about. But when I'm talking about, you know, just random magic or something, it's not necessarily that I'm in the story, but I'm still guiding the story. So I guess I'm a part of it, just, you know, guiding the ship, not on the ship.
Nice. And this may go for all of you actually, but I like this question. What would you tell Adesuwa, let's start with you. What would you tell or advice would you give to your 14-year-old self?
Oh goodness. I would say you have a story you want to write the story. People will be upset because they'll like, whether they think that you've portrayed them in a different way, or whether they think, you know, they said something that they didn't say, or they didn't say something that they said. Write the story, write your truth, because that is the best story that you can write. And the best stories are the most authentic stories.
I really love it. Dre, well, same question.
Can you ask me the question one more time?
What advice would you give your 14-year-old self?
Invest in the stock market. Nah, well, that for sure. But yeah, I think that age is such a it's such a transitional point, right? And yeah, I think what Adesuwa said about just sticking to your truth and telling your story. I think that's profound. That's very important, especially with the climate of today. We want to make sure that you stand in your truth, so that when you are making decisions, it's based off of how you truly feel, and be unapologetic about how you feel and how you want to express yourself, because that's how you really develop to be emotionally agile, right? Emotional agility is something that we all have to have when we going through different processes, right? Because we're going to go through every emotion, right? At 14, you know, you have puberty and all these other types of things going on, and you have peer pressure and all these different things. So if you're able to pull back and say, well, how am I feeling? What's my story in this moment in time? I see my friends, I see my people over there, but let me step back for a second and define what my story is. And then that really could change everything for you. So I think that's kind of what it would be. I was already kind of like that at 14. I was kind of like a black sheep in a way, but I would definitely tell myself, do more of that for sure, like without a doubt.
If I can jump off that, I was like the opposite. I was like the biggest people pleaser. Like when I was like 14, I was like, if anybody tells me anything and they would like that, I will do it. So coming back to myself, or like, you know, trying to figure out like what I actually liked, it was like, you know, finding the one thing that I liked first. And honestly, some days it was like, I was asking myself, what is my favorite breakfast food? Because I just could not tell myself, because I was like, oh, if it's anybody else's, like, I'll just eat it, you know? So it's like, you can figure it out one step at a time, and not just like, you know, you won't know, you won't always know.
Yeah. Isaac, what about you?
I'm like struggling to think of something specific. I guess I'd like to say I would have liked to tell my 14-year-old self to like draw more, and but that's like, I'm not sure I would, in a sense, because I feel like, I guess, just to get the stuff you don't want to do out of the way, as like, which I guess at that point would have been like schoolwork, and just like, you know, get the yeah, get the unpleasant stuff out of the way so you can actually have time instead of just like, don't procrastinate, I guess would be what I'd say, which is, easier said than done, but I still do it. So I guess I could use the advice now.
Man, that's a thing a lot of us deal with, my brother. A question, is there any questions in the chat? Well, we'll go to questions in a minute. I think Aviva has a question.
Yeah, I do. I do see that, Gus, you have your hand up. So I'm gonna go off script. I'm gonna let you jump in here. Go for it.
Yeah, quick question about hearing about your stories and background. Was there any like mentors that you can attribute some of the progress that you've made and where you find yourself today now too, or whether if there were like mentors in person in life or someone you admired and considered a mentor but never met? Was just wondering if that's something that was of importance in your upbringing and where you find yourself now professionally.
Yeah, I mean, I've had an interesting upbringing. Because I mean, as a kid, I was in the street. You know what I mean? Like, I was running the streets as a kid, doing things that kids my age shouldn't be doing. But I was always like, I had grace. Like, I was meant to do things greater. So I always had something that always provided me the space to not be in certain situations. But when we moved to like a really nice neighborhood, and then in high school, I was actually studying to be a doctor. I went to a medical magnet in high school. So I worked in a hospital as class, right? Triage, trauma, pediatrics, blood centrifuge, all that. So, but I was also an artist. So I had art class, and my teacher, I know to this day, Miss Aubrey, she's like, hey, you ever consider getting back into art? Because, she saw that I was a pretty good artist. So I said, I never thought about it. And then she had me tour the school that I went to, which was Otis College in LA. And once I toured the campus, I'm like, yo, this is amazing. I guess I'm not going to be a doctor anymore. I'm going to go to art school, because I was set on becoming a pediatrician. And so that's what I did. So I definitely attribute her, like that moment of me talking to her, asking me that question to changing my career path. And I think if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be far along as in my art journey as I would say if I would have been a doctor, right? But yeah, I think too, intuition, right? And then you meet people along the way. You meet friends along the way that maybe share similar interests, or maybe they're in a position that you would like to be in at some point. So, you ask them questions. You might even shadow them in ways that they don't even know, right? You might be absorbing content online from some prominent figure that's in a space that you can be shadowing. They could be your mentor. They could be your distant mentor. So, people are mentors in so many different instances. They just don't realize it. So yeah, that's what I can say from my experience.
Thanks for sharing. Adesuwa, you wanted to, okay, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that for me, at least, I know that I grew up in a family of writers. Like, I was raised by a journalist, but I used to get in trouble for writing. I grew up in a very dysfunctional household. So like, I used to have like my diaries read. So I stopped writing for like 10 or so years. And then I went to college, and then I got back into writing slowly and surely. But it was really, for me, my big sister, who's also a journalist now, who like sort of was that person as like a model or an example to like, oh, like it's possible to write, and like it's okay. There's nothing will happen. But I would say that like my biggest writing mentor has been Liz Santiago, who's the head of Elevate Stories and the Untold Narratives, for really just believing in me. Like, because I didn't believe in my writing really for like the past couple of years. So having someone who was there to say like, I think this is good, or I think this would be, like a wider audience, should see this. That really made the world like of difference for me for my writing.
Great question, Gus. These answers are great. Isaac, I don't know if you have any mentors that you want to talk about.
I guess like a lot of it would be friends, like just who like especially like I met more friends who were also like in art and animation, like as I got older, and yeah, I guess similar to what this was saying, which is like having them like kind of be like, yeah, like I guess just that little bit of positive affirmation, because yeah, I would keep doing stuff despite questioning whether I was doing anything good or not, but it was having just like the also sorry, yeah, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, it's friends.
Makes sense. Good question. Since
I have one more thing.
Yes.
Nature. That's my biggest mentor. Is nature. That's the biggest one. Nature always provides the solutions for me when I go out and experience it, without a doubt. So that was like.
I love that idea, that something completely outside of yourself, like nature's a mentor. Great question, Gus. Thanks, because at every clubhouse there are mentors, so that's good. I see we're starting to get a couple of questions in the chat. We've got a couple more questions we're going to ask, and then we're going to take questions from you guys. I wanted to ask for all of you, whoever wants to jump in, we really recognize the importance of failure to success and to life. And just curious, about a moment where you failed, or maybe you felt like you couldn't overcome something, and then how did you persevere to get beyond it? And it doesn't always mean that you did the original thing, but you've moved on somehow.
So for me, well, okay. Fall 2019 is a great example of like the things that I was failing at, because I actually failed out of school in fall 2019. And then I thought, and I also lost my job at that point too. So I thought, okay, it's fine. I'll just wait a semester. Spring 2020 will pass by and I'll just go back to school. And then the pandemic hit. So then I wasn't actually going back to school after all. But, it just I finished my college degree online completely because, that was how everybody was doing it. But I appealed to get back into school and like did that whole process. And the way that I went into school as a neuroscience major, and I came out in psychology and linguistics. So it's like, you don't always know like what you're going to end up doing on the other side. But yeah, it was just, I really thought at that time, I was like, my life is over. Like, this is like, I'm out of this school. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I ended up working retail for a little bit, went back to school, and it turned out okay.
Thank you for sharing. I shouldn't say I love hearing failures, but I do. I mean, I've had them too. I could share mine. So appreciate that. And yeah, those moments are tough. I don't know, Dre or Isaac, if you have a really a moment or a period of failure and how you managed to persevere that you want to share.
So I consider failures lessons. I don't necessarily believe in failure. Because everything can heal, right? So, but this is like my biggest one. I bring it up all the time because it just had so much impact on me. So, like I said, I'm a designer, right? And I was working on this really futuristic fashion project. It was my personal fashion project, and I had been working on it for some years until I was able to get the machinery to produce it. And I decided to dedicate myself. This was back in maybe 2018. From 2017 to 2018, this is when I went into full dedication mode So I decided to no longer do contracts with my clients and take a whole entire year off. And without actually having the foresight of the impact of what it would have on me by making that decision. So as I was 6 months, 7 months, 8 months into the decision, I started to run out of funds. And then friends had to help me like pay rent and stuff like that, because I'm like, I'm committed to this process. This was the first time that I had ever committed fully to something like this, right? And I had never been in this compromising position before. And yeah, when I got to the end, I'm like, all right, once I launch it, people are gonna get lit, they're gonna buy it. It was crickets because I didn't have the infrastructure. My ego was like, hey, you're gonna build this thing, gonna launch it. And it didn't say, hey, well, what about the infrastructure? What about marketing? What about this, that, or the other? None of that, right? So when that happened, I ended up moving to the Bay. So not only did that devastate me, because then now I was about to get evicted from my spot that I was at for 5 years because of this decision that I made. But then I moved to the Bay. So I had this decision that I made, and then I moved into a whole new space. So I had to start my life completely over. So it took some time for me to really heal from that, because it was so heavy. It had a heavy impact on me, right? But who came from that was a more wiser, a more profound individual that has more nuance and perspective of things. So I can say like that was a very, very valuable lesson for me, and it taught me so much.
Yeah, growth opportunities. Jeff, I'm gonna pass it back to you.
Okay. Yeah, I really love these stories of perseverance, and you know, it's not I feel like challenges are inevitable and obstacles are inevitable. But if you use those obstacles as like, you know, stepping stones, and reflection, like you just said, Dre, or you're open to some of the feedback that is around those challenges, then it can definitely help you grow, as you pointed out. I have one more. Actually, I want to open it up now. I think we're at Q&A time, and we can open it up for questions. And we have some just in case, but I really would like the folks online to, you know, either raise your hand or type something in the chat. We can take questions. Are there any in the chat?
Yep, there is. You want to read that out?
Right.
Or I can.
Yes, if you can.
Yeah, so this question is aimed at Dre. But I think if anyone has anything else to contribute, feel free. But the question is, how do I inspire teenagers to look at their work in an entrepreneurial way and take their work as serious as I normally see it? I feel like I am pushing too much when I just tell them we need to sell this and we need to work on your online presence so people can see this work. I feel like I just push, but how do I encourage?
Great question.
Yeah, that is a great question. So something that I noticed with like older generations versus newer generations, you said something about push, right? And I think that could be something that could be traumatic depending on who it's being aimed toward, right? So it's like, how do you make it fun and exciting, right? Really finding out what are the things that make them tick, right? Like if you were to pull back from their work and look at their day-to-day lives, what are the things that really interest them and why they interest them, right? Because now we have to show up with inquiry and curiosity. Those are your data points, right? You got to get data first, right? And the only way to get data is through curiosity. And when you ask people questions, it actually empowers the individual that you're asking. but you're also getting insight as well. You see what I'm saying? So it's like an extractionary period. So when you get all the data you need, you can now start to formulate ways to like use nuance, right? Because when we push things, pushing lacks nuance. Push is very black and white, right? But when you bring nuance in, there's gray area. There's like, hey, what do you think about this? Look at this possibility. And you have optionality when you have nuance. But when you push, you don't have any options. It's either A or B, right? So once you figure out, once you get the data from them, then you're able to really formulate something that makes sense to them, because everything is going to be individual specific. If you look at our school system, it's all about, we're going to teach this way. And if you can't learn this way, then it's not for you. We're not going to be able to accommodate you. But when you start to provide customized solutions, then people feel felt, they feel seen, they feel inspired, and they feel like, they feel empowered. So yeah, that's my perspective. Just my thoughts. And I also have a teenager, 14 years old, and I talk to him like I talk to like an adult, and I always show the curiosity, and I also give him insights on the things that I'm learning as an adult and how I'm improving. Whether I give him affirmations, I give him daily affirmations to say, hey, what are some of the things you want to improve on? And then I tell him to write those in. Those are affirmations. So I say, hey, 10 affirmations, say them 3 times a day. When you wake up, middle of the day, before you go to bed, and you do that for 10, 20 days. And those are patterns of repetition. Now they start to believe that they're these things. You know what I'm saying? And that's powerful in itself.
Yeah, that's the point about affirmations, and really encouraging young people, and the curiosity piece, I think is huge. Is what happens in the clubhouse all the time. The fact that there is really no set curriculum. The whole learning model is based on kind of curiosity and following through with your passions and whatnot. So I agree. I would say maybe just adding to that, if exposing them to folks who are in their careers that they may be doing the art in. So even if it's like graffiti artists, graphic designers, some young people maybe doing the art on a daily basis and not know the breadth of careers that are out there in a given field. So Isaac or Adesuwa, you want to add anything to that?
I think sometimes it's sometimes it's a matter of time, and like people finding their way to their path, or people like taking the long way or whichever way to seeing their work the way that you see it, or like having that same belief in their work. Sometimes it really just does take time. Yeah.
Great question, Bordeaux.
I think, sorry, one more thing, my bad. I agree with this was said, like 100%. But yeah, also too, what you said too, Jeff, I don't know if there's any design studios where they are, but really tapping in with them and be like, hey, can we take a tour? We got a group of youth that want to tour the facility. I think those types of things, like you say, have exposure, but like have these full-on operational facilities that you can jump into and really have access to. Because I know, like when I first got eyes on the facility, I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. You can't change my mind. This exists. I can do this. Oh, game over. Sign me up. So that's it.
Yeah. I have another question. If folks we're gonna keep on monitoring the chat, and feel free to raise your hand as well. A lot of people talk about the importance of social currency and networking, social capital. Can you talk about how networking has assisted you, or assisted your career, your journey, and your approach to networking? Anybody could go.
So for me, well, it's been harder in recent years because of, lockdown, quarantine, the pandemic and everything. But I found the untold narratives, like my fellowship, I found them on LinkedIn, like from like one of my connections. So that was really just like because of that connection, that I was able to like find this work. And then from, working with the untold narratives and having Liz Santiago as a mentor, I've been able to find other writing opportunities, whether it's towards like submitting for publications or whether it's just like, different people to just talk to about, work and poetry and the craft. It really is, it's difficult though. I know that like, especially like reaching out to people, but what I found is that a lot of people just want to help you, a lot of, you just have to be willing to put yourself out there, but like they will help. You just like have to, what is it saying? Like closed mouths don't get fed. It's something similar to that, I think, like with networking. You just have to put yourself out there.
Yeah, I agree. What I noticed too is sometimes like it can be difficult to communicate. And it's something that I've actually been recommending to a lot of people is, and I think this could be really cool for teens, just youth in general, even adults, oh man, come on now, you just lost it. Oh man, I'm sorry, I lost it.
That's quite all right.
Yeah, it's what do you call it? Improv. There we go, improv. I think improv is great. Exposing groups to improv, right? And having them talk in front of everybody and have them just do things that are just very spontaneous, I think can really help everyone with reaching out to other people and communicating with other people, because now they have the confidence, right? Because a lot of times you have to build that confidence out because we're so in our devices or we're so attached to something that's outside of who we are. So when we have those moments of improvisation, it might be comfortable the first few times, but then it gets fun and exciting. And it's like, yo, this is cool. Let me reach out to so-and-so now. I'm ready. I'm inspired. I'm confident. So I think that could be a good tool to be able to utilize when reaching out and communicating.
I love that idea. It's making me think for some reason. I'm wondering, Isaac, I know you submitted something to an animation festival. And I'm wondering, I love hearing this. So I love like, there was LinkedIn, there was a connection. I'm wondering, Isaac, did you have to do sort of networking for that festival? How did that happen?
The networking I did for that was years before, like meeting my friend who I did the film with, because he was the one who like kind of pushed for that, which was, I kind of lucked out because I made friends with like people who are a lot more outgoing than I am in terms of like reaching out to people. I'm kind of horrible at networking, but I meant it like, but I like making friends, I guess. So it ended up, it's I guess my advice would be, if you don't like networking, meet people who can. I don't know if that's good advice or not, but that's kind of what I've done. Because yeah, so like I did the film with my friend who was the same friend who showed me the school that like I went to. That's why I'm like up here where I am. I pretty much like my job, it all kind of came back to that to some degree. But yeah, I didn't do too much in terms of reaching out at the festival. I'm glad he did though. It was great, but yeah.
And that's a form of networking. Like let's not discount that, you know, making friends or coming up with those informal conversations over video games or, you know, that sort of thing. That for sure is a form of networking. And you never know what planting seeds and, you know, as you're playing some video game or doing something else, where that may lead once you go get to talking about what you do and, you know, who may know who.
Yes. Could I add something?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, sorry, this isn't really me, but my best friend, she also works in animation. She's a recast animator, and she got her job from one of her Twitter mutuals. So really, you can get, it's anywhere can be a connection.
That's kind of how like I met my friend who I met him online, like, and we just like both liked animation, just like yeah.
I would say that is networking right there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thanks for that additional comment. I love hearing stories like that. Gus, I know you had your hand up before. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. Well, as you all know, in the Clubhouse, we're always at like the cutting edge of technology and having youth create with tech and everything. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on what's going on right now with AI. And do you see that as a in your field? Is it like a threat? Is it an opportunity? I've seen people that like tell like a ChatGPT-3 thing to like write a story of you know, just a turtle and a tree, and they'll come up with the story, and then they'll get the artwork and sell it on Amazon and things like that. So I've been seeing a lot of these things, and so I was just wondering, how's the industry reacting, and what are your thoughts? How is that affecting everything?
I've seen it a little bit with Submittable. It's a site that people use to submit their poetry or their just different types of literature, different art in general, where they'll say like, you know, no ChatGPT like GPT-3 like allowed, or no, you know, AI generated work will be like, I mean, they can't tell, but it's something that they do not like. I don't know. I see the advantages of it and the disadvantages of it. I think it's just for people who are coming up in the field, I feel like it would hinder them to like use like AI art in that way. But that's just how I feel about it.
I know at least for like visual arts and animation, it's I don't know, because you know, I don't know how it's gonna pan out, but I'm not personally too fond of it, partially just because it kind of like lacks the human element a little bit. That's debatable, you know, with like, you know, you're the one putting the, I don't know. I do think that, especially for like, I can only really talk about like visual arts, like illustration, animation stuff, but for that, I would say that foundational skills you will always kind of have. I think it's still worth like I again I'm I like you know, I'd be animating on paper if I could. But I think just like for me, it's like if you build up fundamentals, you know, and even if you do with whatever technology you use or whatever program, whatever software, because there's a bunch of software. It's like the software I use now is like something I've been using it for 3 years and I'm still learning stuff about it. It's like really complicated, but those foundational skills, those are kind of transferable, I guess. It's like, you know, if you learn how to like cut vegetables, you can cut any, like, you know, that's a bad analogy, I don't know. It just again, like I don't know where AI is going or anything about it, but I think, and also just for the development of your own, like, you know, your own development, it's I feel like I still, regardless of where it is, I still think it's well worth it to, you know, put time and explore whatever you're interested in, like learn about it. Anyway, that's, I don't know, kind of trail off at the end, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tool. And I mean, AI has been around for decades. People just didn't realize they were using it. You know, it's in photo, it was always in Photoshop, it's in Maya, it's in Houdini, it's in all these different, it's an algorithm. It's you know, it's a learning model, right? You know, they feed it data and it learns. And we've been participating in it for for many years now, just by posting stuff on social media, right? So we have to understand and adapt the tool. In motion graphics, you see people on LinkedIn, I just went into ChatGPT, or I just went into Midjourney to see if it's going to take our jobs. And I'm like, yo, don't even think about that. Just think about how are you going to use the tool to your advantage. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, think about it. If you were to hire, say you can hire a freelancer, right? Or someone to be able to illustrate your idea. Well, now the freelancer is Midjourney. You know what I mean? So now, you know, you can use that to your advantage. Or now the freelancer could use Midjourney to conceptualize some things for the end client. So it really matters how you want to capitalize off the tool. And I think we're in a society that consumes so much and a lot, and we have to use these things as tools and not as consumption. So once we realize that it could literally enhance and make our lives efficient. Now, yes, you know, there's going to be some sort of legislation around AI, I'm sure, right? In terms of how far they'll let it go and whatnot. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a double-edged sword. And I think standing neutral is important, because when you think about a gear shift, right? Neutral gives you access to all the different gears. And I think being neutral in this position allows you to have access to all the different pathways of what AI is going to offer. And also the caveats, like, maybe I don't want to go that way with AI, but I'll stick to this side. You know what I mean? So, and I also think that learning how they're training AI is essential, right? Because now you can say, okay, what types of graphics cards are they using to train ChatGPT or Midjourney? And how can I develop AI models, personalized AI models? Because like there's companies that are already talking about personalized AI models for certain sectors, right? So when we think about those types of metrics, it's going to be a part of our future. It's going to be a part of our lives. It's already been a part of our lives. Now it's more open and more advanced.
Yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree with anything. I think thanks to the panel. I know we're getting to time here at Aviva. I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah. First, thanks for that question. That AI question is one that we're going to keep asking ourselves for a long time to come. I just wanted to say thanks to everyone who joined, and thank you so much to our panelists. I know I'm not even looking for my career right now. I'm leaving thinking thoughts and ready to reflect. And I hope for people who join, they can maybe share this or you know, talk about it with your youth, maybe host your own panel, maybe share this panel, whatever it might be. And thank you all so much for coming. And we will be sharing the recording out via Clubhouse Connect, probably, you know, sometime next week. I'll post the recording so you can have a copy of it. And I don't know if there's any final words. Now is your time to unmute and share.
Just want to say thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much.